Hey everyone, we're actually in Redmond, Seattle right now filming interviews at the Paizo headquarters. So Bill's doing some questions for some of the writers and the creative directors of Paizo, and we're really excited to show you what they have in store.
Hi, this is Bill with Geeks A Gogo. We're at Paizo headquarters today, and we're talking with Mark Seifter about Pathfinder 2nd Edition Playtest. A Pathfinder 2nd Edition coming out.
Right.
What does it offer for new players?
Well, when it comes to Pathfinder 2nd Edition, new players and experienced players are sort of two of the different demographics that we're definitely very interested in. For one thing, if you don't have a game that your experienced players are really enthused about, you're not going to have a grassroots efforts to pick up more new gamers. But at the same time, we want to be able to pick up some more new gamers. So what we've tried to do, and the way we like to describe it as designers, is that when it comes to a game being simple or complex, we like to think about it almost on like two axes of complexity. There's one that we call simplicity versus complexity. That's how hard is it to dive into the game? Is it streamlined? Is it easy to learn the terms? Do they apply universally everywhere in the game? Some games have a very high barrier of entry. That means they're more complex on that axis. Pathfinder 1st Edition was like that. It's not necessarily good to be very high, but sometimes you need it to get the other axis. Some people call it good complexity. We like to call it depth. Depth is this other axis. It usually takes complexity to get some depth. Depth is your wide variety of options, choices. Can you make exactly the character you're looking for?
Absolutely.
Pathfinder 1st Edition is the king of tons of depth.
A lot of depth.
They got it by having lots of complexity. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to 2nd Edition, we wanted to be more friendly to new players, but also we wanted to reward our experienced players with a lot of depth. So our goal was to reduce complexity where we could in such a way that we were still able to maintain the level of depth and design space. I mean, it might go down a little in some areas, up in other areas, but mostly do our best, and it's pretty hard to train complexity that wasn't getting us much depth. Maybe you remove this one thing that costs a lot of complexity for a little depth, and you add something else that adds a little complexity for a lot of depth.
Gotcha. So the rules in Pathfinder 2nd Ed seem to be significantly streamlined over 1st Edition. What other gaming systems influence these decisions, if any?
Quite a few years ago, it was a little bit before Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, which a lot of people thought might have had a lot of influence on the game mechanics. In reality, there's only so many different things you can do in an RPG, so you're gonna find, and designers are smart and they're talented, and I say this obviously in a non-self-serving way. I mean this about the designers of every game that is out there and that's successful. And so they're going to find similar solutions to different things. You're going to find levels of similarity even on things that are designed separately. So weirdly, a lot of people think Pathfinder 2nd Edition may have been based on Starfinder, but actually Starfinder sort of comes out in the middle of the 2nd Edition design process. We would sort of divert onto Starfinder for a bit, hand it over to carry over the finish line to the Starfinder team, and then move back to Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So Starfinder actually has some of the early stage versions of some of our ideas, but that's not because we took them from Starfinder, it's because we gave them what we had at the time in Starfinder. A good example is ability score generation, which we refined into the ABC method for Pathfinder 2nd. In terms of direct influences, though, the designers played a ton of different games, so anything that came out before 5th Edition, any of the earlier editions of Dungeons & Dragons, we played an awful lot of Logan and Steven worked for Wizards of the Coast. directly, Jason was a major D&D organized play before coming to Paizo, so a lot of that. Obviously, Pathfinder First Edition was a seminal influence on Pathfinder Second Edition.
Really? No.
And I'm sure that other games that each designer have some small influence on them. I've sometimes picked up a board game that I knew that one of the other designers liked that I just had never played. This happened once deep into the process, and I looked at the rules. I was like, there's actually a lot of things that are kind of a little similar to some of that designer's favorite stuff that they had mentioned for the game. I can see where a little bit of the idea came from liking and reading this game. So it's really everything that's out there.
For years. What's with all the goblins? Paizo loves goblins, man.
Well, ever since Wayne Reynolds, just sort of on his own, came up with this really great picture of what goblins looked like way back in Burnt Offerings, the first Pathfinder Adventure Path volume. Goblins have they've exploded in popularity. They have become so popular that in some ways they're almost a symbol of Paizo as much as the golem that is the official symbol of Paizo, the big purple pie golem.
Yeah.
So I would say that's sort of how they came about. But are you also asking why the goblin ancestry in the playtest as a playable ancestry, or just where all the goblins come from?
I was just curious about the goblin this iconography.
Oh yeah.
You guys even put them in space.
Yep, they're in space. They're all over lots of different books sometimes with silly outfits. The Paizo Con brochure has a different goblin every time.
Yep.
So, they just sort of were very popular with a new take on a classic monster. In fact, they're so popular that some days I'll just be playing just some random game I found on the internet, and I'll be like, these goblins really look like the Wayne goblins. They have those oval, long heads.
Yeah.
It's I think that it has influenced some of the zeitgeist on goblins for other people as well. Not everywhere, but some places.
Yeah, wow.
And now they're a playable ancestry in the playtest. Basically, some of the people here, and especially Jason, the director of game design, he really has this vision of a lot of stories that haven't been told but could be told about goblins and their role in the world, how it might change, and how it might change moving forward. And so that with goblins as a player character race, ancestry. With the player character ancestry, we sometimes say the wrong word too, guys. It means that there is a big space to start telling these kind of stories. Why are they there? They're not just going to be retconned away from the goblins that they were before, but they're also not just going to be exactly the same thing as the murderous pyromaniacs, the ones that are adventurers. And that's because a lot of these humanoids that aren't some literal embodiment of evil like a demon, they're more nuanced culturally. They're not a monoculture that all think the same things. And so that's something that we might be able to explore moving forward.
Awesome.